welcome to the Side Netting Podcast, the place we discuss all the latest goings on in the world of football, play a couple of games, and almost definitely go off on a tangent or two. I'm joined, as always, by my friend, my cousin, but most importantly, my co-host, Kieran Burke. Kieran, how are you getting on?
Good evening to you, sir. And yeah, I'm doing pretty well myself. Busy old start to the week, but we can't complain. The nights are drawing in, the chill is in the air, and
Christmas is just around the corner.
I was just about to say that myself. So there you go. Maybe not quite around the corner, but it does feels extra Christmassy this year. So exciting times ahead.
You know the rules. Bonfire night is over. Christmas is full steam ahead.
Exactly.
November 6th onwards. But I do get you. I'm getting that little Christmassy vibe. I'm only on, the 14th of November, so...
It's the right way to do it. Start early doors. Need something to look forward to.
Oh, exactly. We'll be kicking on straight through. But aside from Christmas to look forward to, we also have some Premier League to warm our cockles, Keir. Some prime Premier League over the weekend with Chelsea 4, Man City 4, and another Chelsea banger.
Prime Barclays is the only way you can describe that game. What a game. What a game. It was just pure end to end. It was just vibes, really, wasn't it? No team
a pure
really
vibes game.
Too bothered about defending. Few good goals in there. Few bad decisions, which comes with every Premier League game, it seems like, at the moment.
Nearly got a weekend through without a controversial decision. We were so close. We were so close.
The last one of the weekend, it was only right before an international break that VAR dominates the headlines. But aside from that, we should really focus on the game, because what a game it was.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of the, considering the games we've had this season, one of the best games of the season, if not the best game of the season.
Yeah.
Just, as you say, a complete vibes-a-thon with probably the worst City have looked defensively in a very long time, which will probably go on, rightfully, I guess, go under the radar because of how entertaining the game was. But I've not seen City look so open defensively in a long time.
City just don't concede 4 goals in a game. It doesn't happen. I mean, that's a sign of encouragement for the rest of the league, really, I guess, that you can get at them. I think with Chelsea, it's a weird one because we were talking over the weekend and saying how, you know, they've had a few real good results lately. Chelsea, obviously, the point against City, that's a very good result for them. Obviously, they drew with Arsenal 2-2 and then beating Spurs as well. I think playing against the so-called bigger teams that kind of come out and attack them suits Chelsea more. Their style of play, they're not a team that are going to dominate the ball and really get in behind teams that have like that low block. That's where they really seem to struggle, and probably why they've lost a lot of games this season against so-called lesser opposition. But when they've got a team that comes at them, kind of gives them that chance to lap it up and then counter them with their kind of forward plays they've got. Obviously, Palmer's been getting a lot of praise, I've seen, in the last couple of days as a player that, you know, on a good bit of form. Obviously, most of his goals have been penalties, but just when you watch the game, you can see he does just go at players. He gives that bit of, you know, unpredictability to that Chelsea attack.
Yeah, as part of the wider game, he's definitely one of the Chelsea players that have really stepped up. He was very good against us. He was very good at the weekend against City. I think he was also very good against Spurs as well. Like, regardless of getting goals, and as you say, most of them have come from penalties, in general, he's been very, very good, especially in these big games.
Yeah, definitely. And just touching back on City, obviously, Haaland will score a couple of goals most games guaranteed. But I just think for them, shipping 4, I think that might be, I think it's probably good timing. It's not a disastrous result. No. They've picked up a point away at Chelsea, which in the grand scheme of things isn't the end of the world. Obviously, we done the same a couple of weeks ago. All the best teams do. But I think the manner in which they kind of had points in that game where you expect them to then control it. Like, they come out the traps at half-time, gone 3-2 up, and then allowed Chelsea back in. Then obviously Rodri scores late on, and they let Chelsea back in again. It is always him. I really don't like Rodri. But anyway, he's a great player, but he's just... I think it goes back to that New Year's Day game when he scored the winner against us, and I've had a hatred for him ever since. But he's an unbelievable player. But with City, we're so used to them just killing games off like that and seeing that out and not letting the other team touch the ball for about half an hour. But yeah, they really did look quite vulnerable. And that's a credit to Chelsea as well, because they were able to just keep on going and get at City without really dominating the ball.
100%. It's something that I think it was Jamie Carragher said it over the weekend, where the games that City have dropped points this season is almost a template to other teams. That if you go at City and you're prepared to be brave against City, that is almost a template to get points off them, because it's been shown time and time again that if you're brave enough to try and get through this City team, yes, you'll be at risk at the back, but there's also real opportunity to score against them. I think the fear of this City team, the fear of a Pep team, is starting to wane.
No, I'd agree. And yet they're still sat top, which is just
that goes
some City up. But yeah, I mean, as you said, there's nothing in it at the top now. Just looking at the table now, City top on 28 points, Liverpool second on 27, obviously us on 27 as well, Arsenal on third, just one less goal difference than Liverpool, Spurs on 26, and even Villa in fifth on 25. It's madness. I don't remember a season so close. I know we're 12 games in, but to have 5 teams all within 3 points of each other 12 games in, that's crazy.
Yeah, usually you have 1 or maybe 3 teams at this point, I reckon. But to have 5 teams that close together, and even United and Newcastle are only 8 points, 7 and 8 points out respectively.
How United are 6 points off Arsenal is just astounds me. I was actually speaking to a friend yesterday that supports Man United, and I just said to him, "You have absolutely no right to be in 6th." It just seems like they're just quietly winning games. I think they're actually got the best form record in the Prem at the moment. I'm sure I read yesterday, which
really
is it's quite baffling. I think they've won 4 of their last 5. I mean, the teams they've played, let's get it right, have been teams you'd expect them to beat comfortably, and they've struggled in the games, but they're still picking up the points. So I mean, they're still up there in terms of position and points, despite how poor they've been. But yeah, it just goes to show the quality this season with, in particular, those 5 teams. But obviously you touched on Newcastle there. There's other teams in and around with quality to pick up points. Chelsea now, obviously, they're down in 10th, but it only takes a good run of games and wins to kind of start jumping up the table. So
yeah, definitely.
Really interesting to see how that develops in the next few weeks. And curse the international break, because as the Prem was starting to hot up, we've got to contend with another
at least
2 weeks.
At least it's a semi-exciting international break where it's the roundup of these Euro qualifiers. There'll be a couple of big games over the next week where there'll be things happening, and at least it's not like your usual international break where it's dull as dishwater. At least there's something happening during this one. But you do mention United there, and you say they're one loss in 5. But you think of those games, they just about beat Brentford. And I know I'm going to say just about 4 times here. And I do understand you do have to get your wins, but just about beat Brentford, just about beat Sheffield United, just about beat Fulham, and at the weekend, just about beat Luton. When you think about those teams, maybe Brentford aside, but you think about 3 of those 4 teams and how they've been this season, where they are this season, to be scraping past them. Not great. And then they got absolutely humbled by Man City in that run as well.
Yeah, I think the big worry for United is obviously the lack of goals. I saw a graphic the other day, and it was like the combined front threes of all the teams in the top 6 or 7. And you had Rashford, Anthony and Højlund combined with 1 Premier League goal between them, which is absolutely madness. Quite surprisingly, Saka, Martinelli and Nketiah between them only had 10. We were actually quite low down on that list. But one goal between your kind of regular... I know Rashford was out with injury for a little while, and Højlund as well. But when they have played, they don't really look to have any real threat between them, which is why they've had to scrape wins with like the odd goal from a McTominay or someone popping up with a goal to get them through. Maguire, I think, scored a winner recently as well, whether that was Prem or Champions League. I can't actually remember. I think it was Prem. But yeah, I think that's the real worry. As you say, they're still picking up a few results, and that's no easy feat because like the likes of Fulham, we obviously drew against. No games are guaranteed, but the performances for United have really been poor. Like I wouldn't dare put a United game on at the minute. I'd rather watch paint dry.
Definitely. But post international break, they've got Everton, but then after Everton, you're looking at Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth, then Liverpool, West Ham, Aston Villa, and that gets them through to the new year.
Now Everton, I feel like we shouldn't be saying after Everton anymore because they're actually doing quite well. Like United's going away to Everton.
The confusion's starting to wane, and maybe, just maybe, they're actually a mediocre team rather than a terrible team.
Maybe they could reach those dizzying heights.
Heights of being just below average.
You could be near mid-table. Congratulations, Everton. But credit where it's due. We've called them shit every week, and definitely. I'm just having a look at their form now. Obviously, 3-2 win away at Palace. Palace is not an easy place to go, and I think judging by predictions as well, we both didn't expect that one. Yeah. Draw into Brighton, a win away at West Ham, obviously a loss at Liverpool, and then a 3-0 win against Bournemouth. Like they're in decent little form there.
Yeah, and you look at that Palace game as well. Like to have a team come back twice and then still be able to kill the game off towards the end. That's massive for your mentality.
Big time. And I don't think Everton, I think a big question over them is where are their goals going to come from? The fact that they scored 3 on the weekend, obviously, still not sort of a regular goal scorer in there with a presence scoring goals. I know Calvert-Lewin's sort of kicking back on a little bit this season. Obviously didn't score on the weekend, but I still think they're missing that. But the fact they're getting goals come from elsewhere is a real positive to them. So I think they just deserved a little bit of a recognition that maybe they're not as shit as we give them credit for.
Yeah, Doucouré's been their, I was going to say their main goal scorer, but he's scored 4. But he did pop up again at the weekend. He's their top goal scorer on 4 goals. Got Calvert-Lewin on 3. And then Mykolenko on 2 as their third top goal scorer. I think a massive win against a mid-table rival, so to speak, in Crystal Palace there for Everton. 100%.
Yeah, and our start of the season predictions is obviously something we're going to go into shortly, but I think we both had Everton in the relegation zone. Of course, they could still end up there. It's early days.
It's a long season,
I think that shows, fair play. They're picking up some points against teams we wouldn't have expected them to. So
if you get those points against teams in and around you, that really rockets you up. They're the games. And we spoke about it with other teams a lot over the last few weeks. Those are the games where you really need to be picking up points. Like, if you get a win against a big team, fantastic. But it's against, like, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, that sort of bulk of teams that you really, and obviously the teams below you, that you really need to be picking up those points against.
Yeah.
Sort of mid-table fare. So yeah, a very big win for them. They're now only 1 point behind Wolves and Palace, who are both on 15. Got Brentford and Chelsea on 16. And then just below them, Everton on 14. So we were saying about how tight it is at the top with those sort of couple of points. In the mid-table, towards the end of the table as well, it's quite tight. Sort of, basically, you look just above the drop, where they're starting to fade further and further away. That bulk of teams is starting to really form in the mid to lower mid-table.
Yeah, just on that kind of bottom area, obviously, Bournemouth, massive win for them.
Is he safe, Kiz? Is he safe?
Well, my agenda's taken a big blow on the weekend.
You didn't know what to think.
I will continue till the day I die. Get that fraud out. Iriola, it's time to go.
It was the agenda. It was the Kieran agenda derby. It was Newcastle straight off of that game against Arsenal, and Bournemouth with the Iriola agenda. It was a big internal battle, I'm sure.
Didn't know which way to look in that one, but Newcastle losing games after obviously what happened with us the other week, I'll always welcome with open arms. But sadly, I do fear that Big Andoni's brought himself some time with that result. My agenda could have taken a blow.
We're in November and still no sackings. I feel like usually there's at least 1 or 2 gone.
Yeah, you're right. I think perhaps, obviously, the newly promoted teams are all in the bottom 3. Maybe Maybe it's Maybelline. I think that bottom three, because they're newly promoted, obviously the expectations might have been lower going into the season. So there's not someone glaringly obvious that are massively underperforming where they would have expected to be towards the bottom, I'd say. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, it feels like whenever a team's sort of on the edge, like there was a lot of talk around Moyes recently, and then they went and beat Nottingham Forest. There's been a lot of talk about Iraola, and they went and won at the weekend against Newcastle. It feels like whenever a manager's sort of on the precipice, they get a win to save them, sort of kick the can further down the road.
Yeah. I think in particular, Big Andoni's brought himself a bit of time with that one, because you look at that game, if they'd lost on the weekend, they're sat in 18th, 12 games in. I think bringing the new manager in, even with that result, I'm not just trying to force the agenda here, which obviously we'll go into when we talk around our start of the season
sounds
predictions.
Like you're sending the pod to the old Bournemouth owners here. If you'd have lost that game, lads.
Get him gone. But yeah, I think they're still... He's not had the impact they would have liked going into the season. You look at Gary O'Neill, who they got rid of, doing a really good job with Wolves this season. Obviously, we've not really spoke about that yet, but beating Spurs 2-1 on the weekend.
Yeah, well, we can get straight into that. Between the 3rd minute and the 90th minute, I think I nearly fell asleep on me mid-Saturday afternoon. And then that Sarabia goal with one of the most beautiful occurrences of a commentator's curse I've ever witnessed. Darren Fletcher and he said BT there. There's a few of those cases recently. You've got BT TNT, you've got FIFA EA Sports, you've got X and Twitter. But on TNT Sports, Darren Fletcher said something on the lines of, it is early in the season to say this about teams, but after what Spurs went through this week, you've really got to say it, it's Sarabia! And it was...
Beautiful.
Oh, gorgeous.
Beautiful. The wheels coming off the Spurs bus is always a sight to behold. But
mate,
credit where it's due to Wolves, because I know it was a weakened Spurs team, obviously with that couple of suspensions and injuries that they had. But Wolves, they kept plodding away. I think I saw a stat today, the only team in the Premier League to have been behind for 87 minutes and go on to win the game. Fair play to them. Yeah. But Spurs...
After all that talk about Spurs playing too forward after getting 2 men sent off against Chelsea, they seemed to sit back as soon as they got that goal. I think they had 2 shots on target the entire game.
Yeah, I think showed the injuries and suspensions. Yeah. I think that confidence we've kind of seen from Spurs throughout the season
100%
definitely wasn't there at the weekend, which you could argue no fault of their own. I think a lot of teams would struggle with 4 of their best players out.
Definitely. But if that happened to Arsenal, we'd be sitting on this podcast defending the absolute life out of them.
Yeah. No, I think the context is needed, but Spurs, obviously, that's a big hammer blow for them. Yeah. Leading until the 90th minute and then, going and losing the game.
And the tough games do keep coming for them as well. You've got Villa after the international break. Then you've got Man City after that. Then you've got West Ham. Then you've got Newcastle. That gives
they've got a very tough run of games. Yeah. City as well have a tough little run of games. I think Arsenal really need to try and capitalise in these next few weeks. I don't really want to
put that into the world. I've been here before, Kez.
We've both been here before. Was
last season an anomaly when it comes to Arsenal keeping the pace? Was last season an anomaly? Or is this that new mentality? That'll be the thing to see. But we did mention Wolves there. And after me taking multiple victory laps on this podcast on a range of things, I do think we should stop for a second and let you take your victory lap. I didn't quite think Spurs were going to lose, and you were very, very adamant.
Bang on the money.
Bang on the money.
2-1. It wasn't just predicting a Wolves win, Con. I predicted 2-1 as well. When that goal went in at the end, I was sat there with a smug look on my face, thinking back to the pod predictions last week.
After that goal went in, it was very much you 3, me 0.
It was. It literally was. Oh, Jose was coming out of me, but...
Pardon? You're lucky boy. What a Saturday.
Me. They don't call him the special one for nothing, I'll tell you that much. But, good result for Wolves. I think the perseverance to keep plodding along, and then obviously the bit of quality from Sarabia, even the finish from Lamina as well. Not an easy finish at all. It's coming across him and he sort of just swung a leg and guided it into the bottom corner. So, yeah, great result for Wolves. Obviously, I predicted it bang on, so I will definitely take that all day long.
A prediction that got you the win with the predictions this week. It wasn't a classic predictions weekend by any stretch.
It never seems to be. I don't think we've had any classics. I think the most points one of us has got, I don't know what it was, but it's definitely not a lot.
We've had sevens. We had a 7-6 one week. We had a 7-all one week. Don't do us down that much.
I'll give us credit. Credit.
But this week was 4-1. You got the Wolves prediction, as we say, spot on, and then we both got Liverpool to win. I was so close on Sunday to getting victory from the jaws of defeat. There was a point where it was 2-2 in the Notts Forest West Ham game. It was 2-0 to Liverpool. I was like, I needed 2 correct scores because we have the same to win or same result. So I needed 2 correct scores, and there was a point I was like, oh, come on. And then washed away in front of my eyes.
You got to take that one on the chin, sir.
You do. That does lead us with an overall score of 9-6, with 5 game weeks to go before Christmas, and an overall score of 52-40.
It's close. It's close enough.
Yeah, I do. I think we're 2 straight weeks away from you claiming the week by week, but the overall scoreline that can go all the way down to the wire. I need some good results, similar to the good result I had in the FPL this week.
Here it goes.
An unbelievable week. Captain Salah, 32 points. I thought fantastic. Haaland's not going to do much, and then Captain Haaland got 32 as well, but I only lost 16 points on that because I got Haaland in the team, just not captain. You got Simicast, got me 15. That may or may not have been someone I forgot to transfer out. He may or may not have going to be on my bench, but I'll take the points. Haaland. Saliba, I got 9. Adingra, I got 9, which is an absolute big old differential. Adingra. Watkins, 6. A total of 98 points. Clawed back 34 points on you there, Kiers. Only a 2-point gap in the league.
Not a good week for me. And you're finally out of that 4th position as well. May we add you're up to 3rd.
Our friend Charlie Wills in the mud, 2 points below me. You 2 points above me, and then the other man in the league, 9-point lead on myself, and a 7-point lead on you, Kiers. I climbed 2 million in the overall over the weekend. I was 4.5 million. I'm now 2.5 million.
I had as bang average a week as you can get. I was literally on the average score of 64. Nothing to write home about. Obviously, Haaland saved me really with the captain choice last game of the weekend. Watkins and Diaby both with returns, but nothing to write home about, both with 6. Bowen, 8 points, obviously scoring that goal. So clawed back a few, then everyone else, nothing. Son, nothing. Wang Hee-chan, nothing. Martinelli continues to disappoint since I brought him in. I think he will be going out the door. Obviously, I'm going to wait and see what happens in international break because there's always the risk of injuries or whatever else. Then, defensively, no clean sheets, no returns. I had Trippier, Gahey, Cash and Areola all with nothing. So, no returns. Trippier, Gahey, 1 point. Cash and Areola with 2. And then, slightly annoyingly, I had Porro on my bench who ended up with 5 points, but nothing too disastrous there. Just a bog standard week, really. Obviously, an improvement on the absolute disaster that was last week. But
what can I just say for a second? I went from 13 points to 98.
Well, I think you've saved yourself. We were talking about you would be getting the sack if you were actual manager. I think you might have. Managers buying themselves time.
I had my Bournemouth 2-0 win there.
You did. So you and Big Andoni can stay another week.
We're having a great couple of weeks. Me and Andoni are on the lash, mate.
Get those Baileys in, little Christmas tipples. Listen to Stay Now by E17.
I don't need to be told that twice.
Get it on. Get your big white coat on and just enjoy that. But yeah, a bang average week for me. I've obviously lost some ground on everyone else in our league, annoyingly.
Yeah, but it's something we said before, isn't it? That's the thing with fantasy. One bad week or someone having one very good week can absolutely flip things on its head. And fortunately for me, that is what's happened because I was starting to really drag behind. I've been sort of quite there since the start of the season, and one good week spins it around. But on the reverse, if you have one good week, you can fly back ahead. That's the danger. That's the danger,
it's the beauty. Kids. The beauty of FPL, I do think I need to make some changes because there's some players in there that have been consistently a little bit shit at the moment.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Sometimes maybe shit. So, yeah.
Have you wildcarded yet, Keys? You have, haven't you?
I have. I was just going to say, yeah, I have. I would wildcard again if I had another one. Because
January 1st.
Yeah, I could do with a bit of shipping out.
Yeah, I've got Maddison there, free to be transferred out, which will open up some money there. But I do want to wait towards the latter end of the international break, just in case anything happens. So we'll hold off on that until latter end of next week. See who we bring in. But anything on the week of football, FPL, anything before we move on there, Kiz?
I don't think so. I think we've covered that off.
Fantastic. Let's wrap up there. And that is all for part 1 of the show. So, with us in another international break, the last one, thankfully, for 2023, and just about approaching a third of the way through the season. Myself and Kieran thought we'd have a little reflect over the predictions we made at the start of the season, see what we've got right, what we've got almost right, and what we've got embarrassingly wrong. And there's a little bit of everything in there. So, on those episodes before the season started, Kiers, we did predict our full 20, and I had a little look through. So I have 5 teams that are within one place of where they currently are in the league. I've got Man City, they're in I have them in second, they're currently first. Brentford, I'm in 10th, they're 11th. Palace, I had in 12th, they're 13th. Fulham, I had in 15th, they're 16th. Sheffield United, I had 20th, and they are 19th. And then yourself, you had United in 5th, they're currently 6th. Newcastle in 6th, they're in 7th. Brighton in 9th, they are 8th. Forest in 16th, and they are 15th. And then you have Liverpool spot on in 2nd, Brentford spot on in 11th, and I have nobody spot on currently, which is always fun.
Ball knowledge in the mud, I reckon.
We're thereabouts. We're a third of the way through the season. We've got a few teams that are floating around, but you've had a little lick through those top 20 predictions, Kiz. Is there any that you're embarrassed about? What is the reverse of a victory lap and an embarrassment lap that you want to take for us here?
Well, I think based on the fact I just took a victory lap over Wolves beating Spurs 2-1, I think the fact I put them down 19th, I should perhaps be taking...
Oh, Wolves in 19th. I was going to say, you didn't predict Spurs that badly, but no.
I didn't. I did have them down in 8th, which we both did, actually.
We did.
But I think Wolves down in 19th, having a look at it, is possibly my worst of the predictions so far. Not necessarily miles off it in terms of their actual league position. They're obviously 12th at the minute. But yeah, it's not great, is it? And then obviously we both have Spurs down in 8th, which is still very early doors. And because of how tight points-wise it is at the top, I don't think you can say that's necessarily an absolute stinker with them now sitting in 4th.
Yeah. It's one of those that'll level out. I think we are going to be wrong, but how wrong, I'm not too sure.
I still fancy them for top 4, but as you say, it's so close up there. You just never know what can happen. We're only 12 games in.
Not necessarily the order, but I think the teams that are currently in the top 4, they will be the top 4 at the end of the season.
Yeah, in terms of victory lap, I'm definitely going to highlight my Liverpool bang on in second.
He's gone straight through to victory lap.
Because I think out of everyone that done the predictions, not just me and yourself, I was the only one who had Liverpool up there. You yourself had Liverpool in 7th. So again, we're early doors. It's very tight points-wise up there. But the current state of play and how the season's going so far would suggest Liverpool at least top 4, I'd say. You never know, but I would say so. So I'm taking that as an early season victory. What about yourself?
So that's one you're happy with there, Kiers. As you sort of alluded to and touched on at the start of the season, alongside the podcast predictions, I did message through to my friends, my family, and get their predictions. And so you mentioned there with Liverpool, Kiers. I did just have a check, and there was one of my friends that had them in second as well. And my dad has Liverpool to win the league.
Oh.
But he does also have Everton to finish 4th, so you can't get everything right there.
Take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
He obviously loves
He
Merseyside.
bloody lives for Merseyside. Which, if you knew him, you'd know how wrong that statement is. But victory laps for myself, I don't know if it's victory lap territory, but still having Arsenal top end of the table. Not everyone did. A lot of them were that Man City, Liverpool. We're still right tight with them. I think that's definitely one. Not quite embarrassing, but one we mentioned a few times is that Aston Villa Brighton. We were sort of one team will stay up there, one team will sort of drop a couple of spots. And it looks like Villa at the moment is that team that have held, whereas I had them dropping a couple of places and having Brighton to sort of hold. So not quite embarrassing, but that's one where it's dropped. Annoying one is, I was checking through my notes earlier, I had Wolves, there was a point where I had Wolves in 13th, but I swapped them round with Bournemouth. And looking at the table, I would have been near enough with that one. So that's an annoying one. West Ham's an embarrassing one.
I was just going to say that in terms of walk of shame, I think West Ham for you is the one that stands out to me as a.
I remember the quote I said. Yeah, I remember the quote I said is they're a mess, an absolute mess, top to bottom. I wouldn't quite rescind that totally. They're more just mid now. They're just
a bit of context as well. We did do our predictions before the transfer window, and West Ham left their business very late. Obviously, bringing in Ward-Prowse, it was all up in the air. They were linked with Maguire and everything.
I was going to say, in that discussion, I'm pretty sure there's a big discussion we had on whether Maguire and McTominay would be good signings. Then neither of them ended up going. So that sort of tells you where we were in respect to the transfer window. So, with that context, it's not too bad, but it's not ideal. It's not ideal when you look at the cold, hard facts, Kears.
It's not ideal. Another one as well, whilst we're in Walk of Shames.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say here.
Burnley.
Yeah, I knew that's where that was going.
Burnley up in 12th. Obviously, you had them 14th, so slightly lower. But I think when we discussed start of the season, we both fancied Burnley with that playing style, the fact they absolutely dominated the Championship. Obviously,
got swept
Vincent
up in
Kompany coming in. We massively got swept up in it. So they are stone bottom of the league. I think it's the term I kept saying about Luton, that they were going to be stone bottom, which I still think they will. But Burnley at the moment on 4 points, it's not looking good, is it? Yeah. It's not looking good.
Well, I don't know if you can say stone bottom as opposed to Luton, Sheffield United and Burnley are stone relegation. Yeah. Because there's going to be, I think there might be a little bit of chopping and changing in terms of who's 18th, who's 19th, who's 20th. But from what I've seen at this point of the season, I can't see any of them getting out of that. The only one I have the faintest hope for is Luton, from what I've seen. I think if any of them get out, it'll be Luton. What do you reckon? Yeah,
I think that's a fair comment. With Sheffield United, I've said it like every week, but they have games where they look really tough to beat, and I can see them like obviously getting a point away at Brighton on the weekend. Yeah. That's a good result for them. I just think they can keep picking up those little odd results here and there. So I think they've got a chance. And I think when we discussed before the season, I said that bit of Premier League know-how they have in the side might see them through late into the season in terms of like experience of being in a Premier League relegation battle and coming out of it on the better side of it. I think that could stand them in good stead. But as you say, Luton, another side that looking decent, like they're picking up a couple of okay results. Obviously, that draw against Liverpool was a mighty result and a mighty performance as well. But I think Burnley just look hopeless, don't they? They really do.
Yeah, Burnley look like what I think you expected Luton to be. I think that's sort of what you touched on there, where they don't even look like they're running teams close. At least with Luton and Sheffield United, there's a bit of life to them. Whereas Burnley are kind of just being swept to the side.
Yeah, I think as well, I'd be interested to know when the last time was that all the newly promoted sides to the Prem got relegated.
Got to be a couple of years now, yeah.
Oh, there you go. 1997 to 98 is the only time in Premier League history all three promoted teams have gone straight back down. It was Barnsley, Bolton and Crystal Palace.
What
only time in Prem history. So there you go. That would be a bit of a turn up for the books if they all go back down. And you've got to say, based on... I'll keep my Bournemouth agenda out of this.
I was gonna say who... if Luton do escape, who do you see dropping in?
I think it would be Bournemouth. For me, I know Fulham are down there at the moment, but I think they'll just have too much. I think they'll have too much to go down. Forest, for me, a potential.
If Fulham get swept up in it, though, like, if they continue the way they're going, because there was a point where we kind of went from, they're a very mid-table-y team to, are they starting to drop now? They've had a real struggle the last few games.
I still just think they've got too much quality to go down. Like Paulini in the middle, unbelievable player. They've got a few other real quality players in that team. I just can't see them going down. For me, if Luton or Sheffield United stay up, it will be either Bournemouth or Forest that go down for me. Potentially Everton. I know we've just spoke about it earlier in the pod today, saying fair play to them.
Yeah,
they're doing better than we thought. But it only takes it to flip back on the other side and they lose 5 on the trot, and then you're thinking, they could be in trouble here. And
they definitely have the ability to just completely capitulate. That's the thing with it.
Absolutely. But it would be interesting if they all go straight back down again. It's a possibility.
As I've said a few times, we're only a third of the way through. A lot can happen in the next third, let alone the next 2/3. So it'll be interesting where it goes. The one, I don't want to call it a victory lap, because I think it's probably the most obvious league position there is. But the fact that we had Brentford sort of 10th and 11th, and they are now quite firmly in 11th place, just cements them as the most incredible mid-table team there is.
Yeah, they truly are that classic. They'll get the odd result against a big team at home, and then just kind of keep ticking away with wins against the lower sides. But a real tough team to play away. I'm sure they would definitely still be there come the end of the season. No doubt in my mind.
Oh, definitely. Any other league position notes, comments, or anything, Kiers, before we drop onto the next section of our predictions?
Not really. I think on the whole, it's pretty much as you'd expect, with the few exceptions we've kind of spoke about. I think Burnley, a lot of people probably fancied them to do a bit better than they have. Usually, every season, you see one of the promoted teams does pretty well. It's been quite common over the last few years. There's always one team that comes up that really adapts well to the Prem. It's just not happened so far this season. So I think that's one probably both of us can accept defeat on. Other than that, I think obviously it's still early doors, but I think it will shape up fairly pretty much how we've got it. I think you potentially having United in third, they've not looked great. I had them in 5th, but they could potentially even be lower than that. I know they're 6th at the minute, but the way they're actually playing and the sides they've played against and who they've still got to play, you could definitely see them slipping further down with the likes of Newcastle, Brighton, West Ham, Chelsea, even Brentford, only all within 5 points of them at the moment. I think you could definitely fancy United to slip down just above that sort of mid-table range. So I think we'll both be a bit off it with that United prediction. But aside from that, nothing really stands out for me.
We say of walk of shame, you obviously took your Liverpool victory lap. I don't think I took my Liverpool walk of shame enough, having them down in 7th, the way they've been this season so far. I just didn't... There was nothing... I think I said in the preview pods, I just didn't see anything I liked of them to really push onto that level. I think the 7th was maybe a bit harsh. But there was nothing I saw from them in the build-up to the season that was like, I could see them pushing up there, but they've been fantastic in the most part this season so far. When you look at the only game they've lost was that sort of VAR shambles game. I think that sort of says enough from them. Obviously, you can say exactly the same statement again about Arsenal, but with Liverpool, that's the only game that they lost. And there's a very good excuse, if you want to call it, around it. So yeah, that's a big walk of shame. But we'll go into the next sort of little section, Kiers. I'll give as much time on this next one as we gave predicting it. Haaland, 13
top scorer, no brainer. It's just the man scores goals. He's on 13 already, 12 games in.
He's on 13 goals, and he doesn't even feel like he's been as dominant as last year in terms of his play, but he's just picking up goals because he's that good.
It does help when the ref gives penalties to City every week, but we won't. I do not want to discuss any more about VAR or refereeing after us being rattled
Oh,
last week. So I will give that no airtime. But yeah, that's a no-brainer really, isn't it?
yeah. The next one, we've both got Saka for top assists. He's currently on 4 assists. But top of the assist table, we have Neto with 7.
Yeah. I still fancy our predictions. I'm just having a look now, and obviously Neto picked up an injury recently,
Yeah,
so he's expected out for a while. Then you've got Trippier on 6 assists, and there's a few on 5. So you've got Doku, Maddison, who's also injured, Ward-Prowse, Watkins, and then Saka is with a few others on 4.
the bunch on 4 there.
Yeah, with
Vladimir
Arsenal,
Soufal on 4.
really
Yeah.
slightly strange one there.
He was an absolute FPL powerhouse a couple of years ago. That season where West Ham finished in the Europa places. Oh, he was an absolute diamond.
Diamond in the dirt. But I do think Arsenal haven't really got going attacking wise. Obviously, we mentioned earlier about the combined front three, and I think Saka, Martinelli, and Ketia with 10 goals between them in the league. So not really yet hitting the heights of last season. Although performance wise, you might say, you know, Saka and Martinelli have still looked very good. It's just the numbers aren't quite there. Obviously,
Yeah.
to the level of last season anyway. So I think when we really, I know we've been saying it for quite a few weeks now, when we really click. But I still do think we've got a lot of other gears to go into, which is promising that the fact we are where we are. But I still fancy Saka up there. Obviously, there's a lot of competition there. Ward-Prowse has been a great signing for West Ham, and he'll pick up assists just from his set piece delivery, which is unbelievable. Maddison, if that injury is not as serious as obviously feared for him, no doubt will come back in. Trippier always gets assists in that Newcastle side. So there's Salah as well, obviously on 4 as well. There's others around that can do it, but I just think I fancy Saka. Obviously, there's a bit of Arsenal bias in there, but I do fancy Saka still. What about you? What are your thoughts on assisters? Would you change that prediction now if you could, or would you stick with the star boy himself?
I think I'm not away from it. I think he's still definitely going to be up there. I wouldn't quite nail it on or anything like that. I think that collection, like Doku is on an absolute run of... Obviously, he's got 5 assists there. 4 of those came in the game against Bournemouth.
Stat padding.
Mad stat padding. That was insane. I think that equaled the most assists in a game from Doku there. But I think you've sort of got your usual suspects around there. You've got Salah, Alvarez coming through this season as well. Maddison, injury dependent. Trippier's always going to be around there. I think Trippier's probably going to be... I'm going to put my money on Trippier if anyone goes above him, I think. But there's a lot of really good competition. There's a lot of really good attacking players who notch up those assists. You look at Watkins in there, where he's got 6 goals and he's got 5 assists, where he's on the both sides of it. But you say about Arsenal there and not clicking and being up there, there is going to have to be a point where they click.
Yeah.
Or they're going to drop off. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I think if anyone from Arsenal is going to be up near the top of that assist table, it will be Saka. So I'm not going to drop away from it too much. But the last one in this little subsection is one we've touched on a lot across the season.
Every week. And I will take full blame for that.
Would you say blame? Absolutely. You wear your Andoni hate on your chest.
No one gets a prize for guessing who my first sacking was down as.
Yeah, so I've got David Moyes, who sort of... There was a point towards the start of the season, I think we even said on that pod, it's like, oh, well, that's a prediction blown. And then they had a little tough run recently where, as I briefly mentioned earlier, it felt like if Nottingham Forest beat them at the weekend, he'd be in real danger going into this international break. He got the win, so he's safe for now. I think if they go on this little extended run, if they go 2-3 games lost and they drop him down a few places, he really could be in danger again, but it does feel like that West Ham board do really like him. So, not sure
the
there.
Only thing that could push that is, I know all football fans are, but West Ham fans in particular seem to be very reactionary.
Oh, definitely.
So, there was a point last season when they were all calling for his head until they won the Europa Conference League, and then they sort of seemed to...
If they didn't win that game, it felt like they were good.
Yeah. So that could push it, but league form table, obviously, West Ham sitting in 9th at the minute would suggest Moyes would be pretty safe there. They'll be very happy with that, I'd suggest, and obviously top of their Europa League group as well at the minute. So I'd say Moyes is safe enough, but as you say, I don't think for first sacking, definitely not, but potentially post-Christmas, if they go on a bad little run, get caught up in Europa, then...
That's the thing. You lose a couple of games as well, because they've just jumped from 12th to 9th. You could very easily go the reverse. There's a 3-point gap between Everton in 14th, them in 9th.
Yeah.
So you could very easily go the opposite way if you go on that difficult run, as you're saying there. Your boy Iriola really feels like he's on him and Heckenbottom feel like the two that are really weirdly, based on how terrible they have been, it doesn't feel like Kompany's on the edge.
No, I think because of how good they were last season, Kompany seemed to get a bit of a let off. Well, it's hard to say because obviously we're not in the midst of like noise from Burnley fans necessarily, but the media perception is definitely he's getting a free ride. I think it's fair to say, which based on how good they were in the Championship last season, they should on paper be doing better than they are. And to be sat bottom, they're obviously not going to be happy with, but there's definitely not a lot of noise around it. Obviously, I went for Big Andoni, and I will be going for a victory lap now because it's played out exactly how I said it would so far. I said I didn't fancy them for relegation, but I think that they'd be kind of just floating around there. And because they brought a new manager in with these big ambitions, because they've got the new owners in there, spent a bit of money, they want him to hit the ground running straight away and be playing this electric football. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to happen. And I don't think he's someone, we're talking about Kompany potentially getting given a bit more time. I don't think Andoni is going to have a lot of time. And we've said that win at Newcastle definitely bought him a little bit of time. I really do think if they'd lost that game, it could have even been during the international break, if I'm being completely honest. I could really sense it coming, which is why I've been mentioning it every single week on the pod. Make sure. Just so I can, you got to take the wins. We have plenty of shocking.
We have so many losses. You've got to get your wins. We're podcasters now, Kears. You've got to make sure everybody is aware of your wins, and you try to suppress those losses.
I'll do that. But yeah, obviously, there's a few other teams down there with. You'd suggest the managers are in trouble, aside from Luton, really, because they've got that community feel around the club. It really feels like they're all behind the manager, and that especially that draw against Liverpool. It's like they're just happy to be there. Really, any points for them, it seems like a big bonus. So I really don't think he's in danger.
It is the closest the Premier League has felt like to a weekly FA Cup game. Having Luton around, it does always feel like that big. It feels like every week's the FA Cup third round. It's a really weird thing. that magic feel at Kenilworth Road. But yeah, I think realistically it will be, as you say, between Heckenbottom and Iriola for a first sacking. They seem like the two really on edge. Sheffield United obviously down there, which you might have expected, but that big loss against Newcastle, wasn't it? Do you think that any sackings will happen now before the end of the year? Because it feels like once international break's gone, it's that real sort of games all the way through to the new year. It feels like the next sort of window for a sacking will be the sort of beginning of the year now. Otherwise, you sort of risk throwing your new manager in right in the deep end. Do you reckon that will impact any sackings? Or
I still think there'll be one before Christmas, personally. I think based on how reactionary... Is that
what you were asking Santi for?
That's all I'm asking. Please, Mr. Claus, all I want is an Iriola sacking before Christmas. I think we joked as well how annoyed I'll be if like Heckenbottom got sacked the day before Iriola or something.
It'll be gorgeous.
Absolutely fuming.
That's what I'm asking Santi for. Mr. Sandy Claus.
Oh, Mr. Sandy Claus. But yeah, I do think there'll be one before Christmas. I think of just how reactionary club, like Premier League management is in general and fan bases. I think lose 3 or 4 on the trot, especially those clubs that are already down there. And if you get a big loss in there as well, I think they'll be gone.
We all know with football, it can turn in a moment.
That it can. That it
Yeah.
can.
Last section we've got is about trophies here before we get a brief touch on our general predictions. And I mean brief because they were shocking. We have the FA Cup, obviously not only started in earnest with the first and the second round draw has now come in. So I've got Chelsea to win the FA Cup. You've got Arsenal.
I'll be changing mine to Cray Valley, actually. Go on, the boys.
But by the time this pod's fully out there, they could be.
They
out.
probably will be out tomorrow.
Tomorrow, day of recording, they've got
fair play to
Charlton in
them.
their replay.
Let's give them a shout out, getting a draw away at Charlton in the first round. But yeah, so it's hard to comment on that one, isn't it? Yeah. We're not even into the third round yet. Depends what the draw's like. Some teams get a bit of a favourable run and then win it. But
they're both very FA Cup-y teams, so they both feel solid enough. Then the League Cup, I said Aston Villa, who are out. You said Liverpool, who are in the next round.
What are we now? Quarterfinals, I think?
We are quarterfinals.
So yeah, obviously we lost to West Ham, who then drew Liverpool away. So potentially we swerved a bullet there because you don't really want to put your all into the likes of the League's Cup. Well, for us anyway, for the so-called bigger teams.
And it would have been a back-to-back there as well if we'd have played Liverpool.
I think Liverpool's a good shout from me. I think they'll have a very good chance.
If you do say so yourself.
If I do say so myself. As we said, we got to take the wins where we get them.
A couple of Liverpool victory laps from you here.
Oh, well, I'm going to take every last bit of Liverpool, I don't know.
You and me dad on the sesh to Liverpool is what I'm hearing. The Merseyside Massive.
I'd happily go on a sesh to Liverpool with Shawnee. That sounds like a wondrous weekend. Book me in.
And then next up, we have the Champions League, where two solid shouts, I think, here. I said Bayern, Harry Kane's Bayern, and you said Jude Bellingham's Real.
Bellingham!
There it is.
Belly goal! Hey, It had to be done. What more can I say? Real winning it all, and Bellingham is going to win it for them. I think we need a warning in for headphone users before that section.
Well, I am one of those bloody headphone users that just got an app. Big up the belly goals. I should have expected that.
You should have. You set me up. As soon as you said Real Madrid, it was like a bullet from a gun.
He was off.
Straight in there.
But two teams that have been real solid in the Champions League thus far this season. I don't think either have definitely qualified yet, but they basically both have.
Yeah, I think Bayern have. I think both might have, actually. I think they've both won all their games. Bayern definitely have, because in that group where United are having a stinker. But yeah, I think they'll both go. They'll definitely be latter stages, won't they, based on what they've done so far.
Yeah, Bayern have definitely qualified. They're on 12. Bloody hell. They're on 12. Copenhagen are on 4. Galatasaray are on 4. And Man United are on 3.
Stinker.
And then Real Madrid, they've also definitely qualified, but not necessarily in first. They're on 12 points. You've got Napoli on 7. Braga on 3. Union Berlin on 1. So, yeah, they're both through to the next round. Let's finish first. We can avoid them for the round of 16 as well.
Just going to say, we might get away. We'll say this now and lose our last two group games and finish second.
Curse it, Kiz.
But that would be beautiful to avoid. Although you know what's going to happen. A big team will end up coming second in their group and will end up
we just have a repeat to Monaco a few years ago.
Don't remind me. But anyway, it's beautiful to be back in the Champions League.
PSG are also currently in second place in their group.
Brilliant.
Just put that out there. My favourite one of this little section, though, is the Europa League. And I said Roma, always a solid enough shout. But you said Man United.
Yes, and you know what? That could be a bit of a masterclass because obviously United were in the Champions League when I predicted this.
Yeah.
And I predicted them to come third in their group.
And it was before the draw had even been made.
It was before the draw. And if I then saw their draw, I would have thought, fuck me, that's an awful prediction. They're getting out of that group. Obviously, they've still got a chance, but they've still got to play Bayern. And then they've got to play Galatasaray. Two tough games. So, to be honest, they could even come fourth and not even get into the Europa League, which would be even funnier. But I think that's got legs, because if they're doing as poorly in the league as I think they might do, they might end up towards the end of the season putting all their efforts into the Europa League in hopes of kind of getting back into the Champions League. So that could be one to watch. But obviously, they're not even in the Europa League yet, so I won't count my chickens before they've hatched.
A real solid shout, though. Roma are second in their group. They're on 9. Slavia Prague are also on 9. And then you've got Servette on 4 points, Sheriff on 1. So a solid one there of them to get through at least. I really like your United Europa League there as it's developed. The last one, Kears, is just to show we've taken a couple of victory laps today, a couple of walk of shames. These are complete walk of shame. Yours is more unlucky than mine.
Rashford, I think I cursed poor Timber. But can I hear an in-depth analysis into your thoughts behind Rashford 25 plus league goals and to finish second in the Golden Boot, please? Could I get with his 1 league goal so far, could I just get a bit of analysis into that?
I really expect. I went on a big long speech about this in the preview pod that I really expected him to have a storming year. Evidenced by me saying United in third. I had a bit of expectations from United this year. Less than a lot of people who did have United first or second, but I had them up there. I had Rashford to really guide them. I thought he's now in his mid-20s. He's now going to go for it and really sort of kick on. And I think it's safe to say he's not done that yet.
Not quite.
That laugh was the smuggest. I can picture your face as you made that laugh, you prick.
Oh, shame we don't have some visuals as well as audio, but just know I looked very smug there. Although, saying that, as we glance onto my prediction, obviously...
Well, yours, as we say, is a lot more unlucky. You had Timber to replace Zinchenko in the starting 11, and then to subsequently win the Arsenal Player of the Season. And we just never got a chance to see if that would develop. It was unlucky. It was an unlucky prediction.
In my defence, the fact that Tomiyasu has, I'd say, pretty much replaced Zinchenko in our starting lineup in terms of, in the big games, Arteta doesn't trust Zinchenko, you can see this season.
100%.
Which is obviously because of his lack of defensive ability, I think is fair to say. He obviously gives us a brilliant element on the ball, and when we're playing the lesser teams, but I think Tomiyasu's done very well this season, and it is a real shame because I think Timber would have been a really big player for us. Obviously, hopefully he's meant to be back early in the new year, I believe. So
yeah, maybe he storms that 4 or 5 month period. We will see.
If he wins the Player of the Season with half a knee and playing half a season, that would be the greatest prediction of all time, and I'd be doing the longest victory lap of all time come the end of the season. But I can't see it. But so hopefully we'll have him back soon.
Yeah, that does bring us to the end of our little prediction update. We'll, I guess, have another check-in another 12 games, as we, at that point, will really have a good idea of how the league is shaking out. But that is everything for this week's episode. Kieran, as always, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a great week. Speak to you next week.
Baby, if you got to go away, don't think I could take the pain. Won't you stay another day? Oh, don't leave me alone like this. Don't you say it's the final kiss. Won't you stay